Good afternoon. Welcome to HRPP's Research Matters. I'm Erica Salzik, the Department Administrator for UT Southwestern's Human Research Protection Program, and I'll be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to go over some housekeeping items really quickly. So first, if you have any questions for our presenters, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentation. This session is being recorded, and you can watch it again right after it's finished by clicking on the Microsoft Teams Live link in the email invitation. We'll also send you the slides via email. You can find the links to future meetings, slides, handouts, and past recordings on the HRPP's Research Matters website under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one via email but should have, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu. And lastly, we want to hear from you. We're interested to know what topics you would like us to cover during these sessions. How did our speakers do and how our office is doing? So please take a few minutes to complete the survey to provide feedback. You may access the survey using your phone via the QR code here on the screen or your computer by selecting the link, which will be dropped into the Q&A in just a moment. Here is the agenda for today. Today we have some announcements from the IRB office, which will be covered by Mayed Bird. Then we have a presentation from our Quality Assurance and Monitoring Office. Scott Myers is going to provide information about consent observations that may be requested as part of a quality assurance review to determine whether the information in the consent document and any other written information is accurately explained. Then we will hear from Rhonda Aleppo, the Assistant Vice President for Human Research Administration, on the state of the HRPP. She's going to share what has happened over the past year and the future plans for the department. And if there's time at the end, we will conclude with an open Q&A session. So I'm going to turn it over to Maya.
Thank you, Erica. We'll go over 2 updates that I have for the IRB office. So the first update is in regards to recruitment materials and compensation. So previously we worked in a fashion where we didn't allow compensation amounts to be provided on recruitment material, but we will now allow recruitment material to include compensation amounts. However, I want to make this clarification in times in which the IRB may determine that the compensation amount should not be included. The IRB considerations are going to be perhaps in a situation where compensation is being provided and it's different based on the different groups. Another consideration would be in a situation maybe where the compensation amount is not in the best interest of the population being researched. A good example would be maybe research being done on maybe drugs, illegal drugs. So that might be a situation where you would not want to talk about the compensation on the recruitment material. And then another one would be possibly there's a high dollar amount of compensation where maybe the explanation of procedures are not clear. So those are just some general considerations. But again, you can include compensation amounts on recruitment material, but it's going to be up to the IRB to determine if that amount should not be displayed. Another update that we have is in regards to Reliance studies. We are now allowing Reliance studies to be submitted before the external IRB has approved the onboarding of UT Southwestern and its affiliates. And this change was made to allow for early ancillary reviews. So to initiate some of the review process internally, you needed to have the study submitted. And so this is going to allow for you to get that the ball rolling quicker. And this will also allow for performance site access kind of early on. So some of the things that I want to kind of talk through is because we've got reliance on different IRBs. I want to talk through that. So first, whenever we're using the NCI CIRB, the NMDP, or TrialNet studies, we're going to follow this workflow. The study can be submitted in EIRB without a reliance request. We want to make sure that any local context information that's required by that reviewing IRB, that information is being completed by the IRB staff and not by the research team. Once that information is provided to the reviewing IRB, and the study is submitted to the IRB, we will do a pre-review of the submission and work to get the study in kind of a accepted state as much as possible. Work with the coordinator, send the study back and forth until the study is kind of in an accepted state. If the study is pending any type of ancillary reviews, so like SURE, PRMC, and external IRB review, again, of the onboarding of UT Southwestern as a study site, the study will be returned to the research coordinator or the PI. This is a critical and important step, basically to help us make sure that we're able to calculate turnaround times based on IRB turnaround times and then total turnaround times. So the study will be returned to the research coordinator, the PI, and you'll wait until those approvals are in place. Once they're in place, the study will be resubmitted to the IRB office. We're going to take a quick glance at the study to make sure no other changes were made such that other approvals are required or that you don't need anything else from the external IRB. And then we will move the study into the accepted state. So again, that's use of NCI, CIRB, NMDP, and TrialNet studies. If you're using WCG or Advara, the commercial IRBs, we're going to follow a different process. You'll need to submit a reliance request. So once the reliance request has been submitted, you'll receive clearance to submit to EIRB, and that will look like you receiving an email of acknowledge of reliance, or if an affiliate is involved, it'll be the email acknowledgement of reliance and the affiliate agreement, noting that Children's Health does not require an affiliate agreement. That study is then submitted to the IRB. We will conduct our pre-review just as we have done before. The study will be returned to the research team or the PI if it is pending any type of ancillary review committees or external IRB approval. Only when those approvals have been obtained can you resubmit the study back to the IRB office. Once we receive the study back, we'll do a pre-review, make sure no other changes are required, and the study will be accepted. Okay. And then finally, we've got reliance on all other external IRBs. This process is going to be similar to relying on the commercial IRBs. However, there's a slight difference. We will need a reliance request submitted. You'll need to get the clearance to submit to EIRB, and that will look like you receiving an email to agree to cede to the external IRB. It's important to ensure that our office, the UT Southwestern IRB office, has received the reliance package from the external IRB. And that reliance package is the reliance agreement and local context form that needs to be completed by our office, because that provides the reviewing IRB with things that they need to take into consideration to make determinations on behalf of UT Southwestern and our affiliates. Once the study is submitted, a pre-review will be conducted, and again, we're working to get it into an accepted state. If the study is pending any type of ancillary review committees or external IRB approval, again, you cannot return that back to us until it receives external IRB approval and that the ancillary approval is in place. We will quickly review the study, make sure no other approvals are required, and then we will move the study to an accepted state. So that is all I have for updates at this time, and I will turn things over to Scott.
Thank you, man. Just get my screen shared. Okay. All right, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sure most of you are familiar with my team, the Division of Quality Assurance and Monitoring within the Human Research Protection Program Office, and I'm sure you're aware that as part of our mission, we regularly conduct quality assurance reviews of IRB-approved research to ensure regulatory, institutional, and protocol compliance. My team does have several ongoing efforts, but you are probably most likely to encounter me or one of my colleagues during a not-for-cause quality review a for-cause audit, or a study initiation review. And it is these three review types that are most relevant to our topic today. We have recently introduced an option to observe informed consent when necessary as part of our quality reviews. Now, the purpose of observing the consent process is to determine whether the information in the consent document and any other written information was accurately explained to and apparently understood by the subject or the subject's legally authorized representative, and that informed consent was freely given by the subject or the legally authorized representative. Okay, I don't expect we will request a consent observation for all or even most of our reviews. However, we will likely request one in the following scenarios. If we identify areas of concern related to the consenting of subjects, for instance, if during a review we come across consistently missed signatures, optional yes/no checkboxes going unanswered, if there are date gaps between when the subject consents and the person obtaining consent signs, and etc. It may also even be that we suspect that the person obtaining consent is just not adequately familiar with the study, and that sort of thing does definitely happen. Now, we may also request to observe consent if your study presents high risks to subjects, or if there are certain vulnerable populations, or if it's particularly complicated. Particularly in these instances, having an outside observer may really be helpful to ensuring properly informed consent. We could also request a consent observation if there are staff with minimal experience obtaining consent, such as new staff or just a staff member that's new to this particular role. And of course, there just may be a number of other situations where there are concerns that the consent process might not be proceeding well. I will also say that I've frequently had study teams ask me during a not-for-cause review or even a study initiation review, they'll ask if we observe consent. So if you as study teams have concerns about the consenting process, or if you just think it might be helpful, feel free to ask us for a consent observation during one of your reviews, and we'll do our best to try to accommodate that. Now, as far as the consent observation procedures go, as I've already stated, we will request this during a quality review, and we'll work with you to schedule a convenient time. Of course, it'll have to be when you have a subject presenting for enrollment. Once we are on site to observe the consent, we as regulatory monitoring analysts will need to introduce ourselves to the potential participants and explain why we are there. Very importantly, we will ask for the participants' verbal permission to observe their informed consent. If they refuse, we leave, period. But if they agree, we will sit in and use our checklist to document any observations. If by any chance during the consent process there are any issues or questions concerning our presence there, then of course we can enter the discussion. Otherwise, we will just quietly observe and let you do your thing. So if possible, immediately after you finish consenting the participant, we will go ahead and debrief you then. Otherwise, we can always schedule a separate time that's more convenient. If there are any issues or deficiencies, we will just add those to your actions required report that you'll be receiving anyway for your quality review. It is possible that we may go ahead and request to schedule a second consent observation to determine if previous issues have been resolved. All right, and in conclusion, I will say this, we are in awe of the work y'all do, and we greatly appreciate your efforts in helping support our mission of protecting human subjects. I know that my team, we come to review your work, but please think of it as an opportunity for guidance. We really do want to be helpful. Thank you so much, and with that, I will turn it over to Rhonda.
All right, thanks, Scott. Slide shared. All right. So good afternoon. I'm Rhonda Aleppo. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Human Research Administration, and I'm also the Director of the UT Southwestern HRPP. So I'm excited today to share with you this year's State of the HRPP, where I'll discuss our performance, challenges, accomplishments of 2023, and also touch on some exciting new initiatives that we have underway for 2024. So some key points that I'll be discussing today include a brief overview of the HRPP and the history, our performance in 2023, challenges, changes, and accomplishments that we've experienced, some current projects that we have underway, and finally, some exciting initiatives for 2024. So this wheel is a reminder of the complexity of the HRPP. The dark green bubbles that you see, these are the only components that the HRPP department has direct responsibility for. And I like to just bring this up as a reminder that the Human Research Protection Program encompasses so much more than just our department. So as a brief timeline for the HRPP department, our department was established in 2016. It was formerly the IRB office. In 2017, we established our Quality Assurance and Monitoring Office. That year, we were also blessed with an OHRP audit with no findings. We finally received our letter last year. And in 2017, we also began to allow our reliance on external IRBs sort of widespread. Prior to that, there was a prohibition at UT Southwestern for that. In 2018, we rolled out eIRB Lite in preparation for our AHARP accreditation journey and submitted our application to AHARP in 2018. In 2019, we did receive our initial AHARP accreditation after a exciting site visit. And then in 2020, in the height of COVID, we received some new leadership when Dr. Peterson came on board in November of 2020. And then in 2021, our Regulatory Support Office was established. This is also the year that the CTSA was reawarded, and we submitted our AHARP reaccreditation application in 2021. And in 2022, we received notice that our reaccreditation was approved, and we actually began a long-awaited eIRB redesign in 2022. So 2023, we saw the establishment of a new office, which I'll talk about in a little more detail. So this is the org structure for the HRPP. Dr. Peterson, as I mentioned, is our institutional official. And the Office of Clinical Research under Dr. Papu reports to Dr. Peterson, and the OCR is focused on operational aspects of clinical research. The HRPP is a sister office of OCR and also reports to Dr. Peterson. However, instead of operations, the HRPP is focused on regulatory requirements and oversight of human research. I want to point out that the mission of the HRPP is really to ensure the ethical oversight of research. And we do this by helping our investigators to navigate the increasingly complex regulatory requirements. We are the experts in the regulatory requirements for carrying out human research, and we want to ease that burden for our investigators by providing support for IRB review, research conduct, regulatory investigations, and sponsor investigator responsibilities as they relate to FDA and clinicaltrials.gov. So this is the organizational structure of the HRPP department and includes responsibilities for each office within the department. So the offices are the IRB office, regulatory support and monitoring, and administration. The IRB office is responsible for the review of human research. They also function as the privacy board. There are federal reporting requirements that the IRB must follow. The IRB office is also responsible for processing and managing agreements for IRB reliance and, in some cases, data use and data transfer agreements. And we have federal requirements for record keeping as well that the IRB office must follow. Regulatory support and monitoring is made up of the Quality Assurance and Monitoring Office and the Regulatory Support Office. Quality Assurance and Monitoring, which you just heard from Scott, covers study monitoring, that's for cause and not for cause, assistance with FDA audits, and this group also monitors the HRPP and the IRB for quality. Regulatory Support Office, on the other hand, provides assistance to investigators with submissions to the FDA and maintaining their clinicaltrials.gov registrations. The HRPP administration is responsible for invoicing and collecting of HRPP fees. These include IRB fees, other review fees for HRPP, or SI monitoring fees. We're also responsible for the clinical research coordinator education, as I oversee that part of the CTSA, and ethics education, such as this Research Matters session that you're attending today. So now let's take a look at the metrics for the HRPP offices, starting with the IRB office. I want to remind you that the IRB metrics are available on the first page of the HRPP website, and they're updated monthly, so you can log in to check those out anytime. This table here is showing you the number of new study approvals from 2019 to 2023, so over the last 5 years. It's interesting that we haven't really seen a huge growth in the number of studies at UT Southwestern. We are starting to see an increase in the number of full board studies. So those are the committee review studies or more than minimal risk. But with the exception of 2020, when we had sort of an influx of COVID-related protocols, we're not seeing a huge increase. I still expect that this trend upwards to continue into the future years as OCR has some new initiatives in place to really encourage and build more research. So now looking at the turnaround times in 2023, you can see that there was a huge increase in IRB turnaround times. This was the highest that we've seen in 5 years. And I want to discuss later some changes that we made to address those issues. The Reliance studies, actually, the turnaround times decreased in 2023, so we're doing really well there. But with regards to exempt, expedited, and full board or IRB reviewed studies, we did see quite a big jump. I want to point out that the red lines on this graph are actually the IRB office's goals for turnaround times. And in 2023, MAIAD actually set new goals for the IRB office and actually brought them all down a little bit. So I think you'll see that the IRB is going to continue to push hard to meet these new challenging goals in 2024. So now on to the quality assurance and monitoring metrics. On this slide, you can see the number of visits that were completed by the Quality Assurance and Monitoring Office in 2023. So they completed 101 visits, and they were all sorts of visits, not just not for cause or for cause monitoring visits, but they've also conducted quite a few sponsor investigator monitoring visits, assisted investigators with FDA audits or FDA audit prep, the study initiation reviews that Scott Myers had presented at Research Matters a month or so ago. They've had a couple of focused reviews. We also conduct follow-up reviews, so if there were quite a few deficiencies found and a strong CAPA was required, the QAM team will actually go back out in about a year or so and just make sure that things are continuing to improve. And then finally, there's the remote to on-site reviews. They had 2 of those this year. So just to cover some of the observations that they've identified by deficiency categories, we've broken the categories of deficiencies down. Happy to say that there were no deficiencies identified with regards to PI oversight, but more than half of the deficiencies are actually related to GCP requirements for regulatory documentation and source documentation. I really do hope that with the rollout of Florence and more usage on Florence, that we'll see this start to come down. About a third of the deficiencies were actually related to compliance with institutional policies or regulations. And so, we really want to provide more and more education to help investigators and study teams remain compliant with those requirements. The QAM also assisted with 1 FDA inspection in 2023. The outcomes of the inspection were pretty positive. 2 studies were reviewed, and only 1 of the studies had findings with 483 involuntary actions indicated. This is the best possible outcome. It still required a response to the FDA, but again, the actions required to address the 483 deficiencies were what the FDA considers voluntary. So turning now over to the Regulatory Support Office in 2023, the graph on the left is showing the clinicaltrials.gov support that was provided to investigators in 2023. You can see the different types of support investigators are asking for help with when actually interfacing with that clinicaltrials.gov system, which I'm sorry to say isn't necessarily improving the usefulness or the user friendliness of that system. But the team did assist with meeting submission requirements on 67 projects in 2023. And of those, they actually delivered full service on 41 projects. And as a reminder, full service involves the regulatory support office completing all activities, and the PI simply confirming and releasing the records. It takes a lot of burden off the shoulders of the study teams. The graph on the right reflects the type of FDA submission support that was provided to investigators, and the team helped with a total of 49 submissions to the FDA in 2023. And I do want to point out that support in the graph on the right is not only with the submission, but there's also assistance that's provided to the study teams in responding to any FDA information requests. I do want to remind you that you can schedule a booking consultation with the RSO if you need assistance in either of these areas. And I would like to point out that our clinicaltrials.gov study registrations have actually increased to 936. That's nearly 200 more than what we had last year. And we've continued to maintain 100% compliance for all records on clinicaltrials.gov with FDAW requirements. And with regards to sponsor investigator IND and IDE studies, we now have 75 active studies where a local investigator holds the IND or IDE. So this is nearly double what we saw a couple of years ago. Now I want to just provide a little bit of information about the feedback that you provided to us over the last year. So in 2023, we had 167 feedback surveys completed following our Research Matters sessions. In those feedback surveys, we ask you not only how we did at that session, but we also ask what we're doing well and what we could improve on as an office. And so some of what we hear that we're doing well is information sharing. So providing you with updates to anything that's changing in the office, new policies, procedures, et cetera. Training and education sounds like we're doing all right. We've got some really positive feedback on that and the quality of these presentations and materials that are provided out of our office. With regards to what we can do better, there was quite a few comments on communication and the need for improvement in communicating from our office, specifically responding timely to emails. And some other communication improvements that we could make have to do with really clearly explaining what's required whenever we require changes to studies, whether that's in the pre-review or stipulation review from the IRB. And so we're going to take that information back to the IRB office and see what we can do to make some improvements. With regards to technology and system enhancement, this has been sort of a continuing theme that we need to make improvements to our website and our eIRB system. We're working on an eIRB system redesign right now. Website is something that is very important to us, and we're hoping that we can get support in this year to work on our website and make the improvements that you need. With regards to forms, you had asked for easier access to forms or the ability to include them in the applications. And I have really good news coming to you on that front when we talk about the eIRB system redesign. So now I wanted to talk to you about a project that's supported by the CTSA and the Office of Clinical Research. And this is a quality improvement project whose goal was to improve study startup. And it's a multi-office project. So we actually included representatives from sponsored programs, from the HRPP, specifically the IRB focus, the Office of Clinical Trial Management, which handles the performance site approvals at UT Southwestern, and representatives from the Simmons Cancer Center. Again, we met, really started talking about what can we do to improve study startup. And the first step of that was to develop a process map. And so out of those meetings, we did develop a process map that was printed out and put on the wall, and I believe it's 8 feet long and 4 feet high. So it shows the real complexity for study startup at UT Southwestern. Some opportunities that we identified so far, and this is early still in the process. One is that there's a need to standardize processes. Each office sort of has their own process, and we've been operating in silos. So bringing us together to the table was really helpful for us to see that. We also need to improve communication both between offices and also to the research community. There's sort of a lot of different listservs that go around, but no one general clinical research listserv that we could reach out to the entire community at one time. Also, we want to minimize handoffs. So that process map actually showed more than 50 handoffs between individuals or offices. And what we know is that every time there's a handoff from one person or one office to another, there's always a delay before the next person picks it up. And so if we can minimize handoffs, we might be able to really improve that study startup time. And finally, there's a need to develop resources and additional guidance, and then to communicate that widely, again, going back to the improve on communication. So this is an ongoing project. We're continuing to work through some of these opportunities, and I'll continue to provide you more updates as we have them. So now moving on to challenges, changes, and accomplishments for HRPP in 2023. I want to talk about some of the major challenges that we've experienced. So in 2023, and 2022 as well, we really experienced a lot of staff vacancies. We remained at about 75% staffing for 2 years and really struggled to find new and qualified talent. So the staff troubles led to study backlogs, and those study backlogs led to a decrease in IRB turnaround times and unhappy investigators, and also decrease the number of studies that could actually get off the ground timely. So what we did was we looked at the IRB backlog, and I really have to give credit to Mayad Bird on this one. She looked at the IRB backlog to figure out exactly what's happening. Why do we have such a backlog? And so if you can imagine that these green dots represent the exempt studies, the blue dots are full board studies, and the red dots are expedited studies. They were all being submitted into the same sort of funnel, into EIRB. And we had just basically one team that was doing the pre-review. So there was sort of competing priorities for the pre-review time of those pre-reviewers. And then actually scheduling them for IRB review, whether that's to a full board or an expedited reviewer. Again, these are competing priorities because we really had 4 individuals in the office that were responsible for the IRB review and actually reviewed the research. And so the outcome of the approved studies was actually very little. So while we had a lot of studies coming in, it was hard to get all of those studies out. So that was identified as a major challenge. And the solution that Mayad worked hard to develop over the last summer was to actually divide that one funnel into 2 funnels. So you have the full board team, which is made up of 6 FTEs. And so all of the full board items or full committee items will go through that one team. And the goal is everything that comes in will come back out in a timely fashion. And same with the expedited. So because there's more protocols that come through expedited review, there's more FTE on that team, and everything that comes in hopefully will come out in a very timely fashion. This has been extremely successful, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the successes of this change that took place. She implemented this August 1st of 2023. Some other changes, we had some office and staffing changes. Leading into 2023, we actually had a regulatory support office and a separate quality assurance and monitoring office. And in August, September of 2023, we actually combined the 2 into the regulatory support and monitoring office. We also had some major staffing changes or personnel changes in the HRPP. The first is Kim Mapes was named the director of the regulatory support and monitoring office. Eric Solis was promoted to IRB manager, which is a new position, but not really new because we had an IRB manager position, back 8 years ago. But it's been sort of dormant for all that time. Hen Nadeem was promoted to HRPP program manager of that new expedited team, and she replaced Chuck Akers, who retired at the end of August. Tara Garcia, this is hot off the presses. Tara Garcia was just promoted to HRPP program manager of the full board team. This is a brand new position, and she actually will actually enter that position in March. Sandra Moronis, who you might be familiar with, she was a regulatory analyst in the HRPP, moved over as a clinical research educator under the CTSA. She was working with me on that clinical research coordinator education. We actually moved her position to report into the Office of Clinical Research just because it seemed like a better fit for her. She is still affiliated with the HRPP as I still oversee the clinical research coordinator education as part of the CTSA. And finally, Raj Varadarjan, he was our regulatory scientist in the regulatory support office. He did move to pediatrics effective January 1st, and he's working with their gene therapy program full-time, so he's no longer with the HRPP. But we thank him for everything he's done for us. Now I want to talk about some key accomplishments in 2023. So first, the IRB was blessed with another federal inspection in 2023, this time by the FDA, and I'm proud to say that there were no findings in that inspection. The IRB backlog was actually cleared in 2023. So we did hire Advara to assist us with clearing the backlog. We cleared over 370 non-committee submissions before MAIA implemented the change to restructure the office. So with the restructuring of the IRB office, again, that was implemented August 1st of 2023, we did see a decrease, a really significant decrease in non-committee turnaround time. Honestly, the turnaround time is lower than I've seen it yet. With exempt studies as of the end of November, we're coming through at 12 days, and expedited studies were being approved within 20 days. So that was really exceptional work. The Quality Assurance and Monitoring team implemented the study initiation reviews, and the purpose of those reviews was to conduct early quality assurance reviews for studies soon after approval. This has been received very well with many of the study teams. They actually will ask Scott to come back out after their first participant is enrolled just to see, how they're doing. And finally, we launched the Clinical Research Coordinator Foundations course in 2023. That was in July of 2023. It included online courses, videos, and a researcher handbook. All of those are available on our website. And happy to say that in the first 6 months, 300 people completed the course. And out of those 300, only 70 were required to complete the course for onboarding. That means that 230 individuals actually completed the course because they wanted to take it. Feedback that we've received on the course so far has been extremely positive. And here's some of the feedback that we've received from individuals who have taken the Foundations course. We learned from these individuals that they felt the course was understandable. Some did wish that it was available when they started to work here. There's a desire from our attendees to have hands-on activities and also to have contact with more experienced coordinators. And some have said that they feel it should be mandatory for all coordinators, regardless of how long they've been at UT Southwestern. As a reminder, this Clinical Research Foundations course is at this time only required for incoming clinical research coordinators as of July of 2023, but it's available for anyone to take. Now, here's some current projects that we're working on and some exciting initiatives that we hope to be completed in 2024. So first, with the support from the CTSA, a consent template generator is being developed, and the purpose of that is to generate a custom consent template, depending on how certain questions have been answered in the EIRB system. So some of the fields in EIRB that the template's dependent on include study title, PI sites, whether or not there's conflict of interest, certificates of confidentiality, GDPR requirements, if the study involves drugs or devices. Those sections will show up. Signature blocks, we have multiple signature blocks, and we leave it up to the study team to decide which signature blocks are appropriate. Cost and compensation information that you put into EIRB will be used, and whether or not research results will be returned to participants. So if some of these fields are answered in EIRB in a certain way, then those relevant sections of the consent template will appear in the generated template. Sometimes even the information will be populated within your consent template that's generated. For example, study title and PI name, those will show up in your generated consent template. The template itself will not be completed. It's not going to be something that you can take and submit to EIRB right away. You'll still have to go through it and update it. But what we hope is that it gives you a head start on completing the template, including information or sections that are only relevant to your study, and improve sort of the consistency in the information between EIRB, your protocol, and your informed consent document. So also with support from the CTSA, we're developing a new sponsor investigator database, and that's intended to assist the regulatory support office. So what we want to do there is pull information from clinicaltrials.gov, the FDA NextGen portal, if it's used for your study, and EIRB to sort of tie all of the information together into one place for each study so that we can ensure that we have all of the upcoming requirements for our investigators. We hope that the system will help us with tracking notifications and reporting, and when maybe your annual review is due or your annual report is due to the FDA, this system will be able to send out notifications to let you know that an annual report is due in a certain period of time to prevent your INDs or IDEs from being terminated by the FDA. Now onto the EIRB system, of course, hashtag new system. So a big part of what we've been working on in 2023, and we continue working on this year, is the new EIRB system. I know last year when we talked, we really hoped that this would be rolled out, but I think that there was maybe the expectations of what was really required in the system redesign were less than what it actually is. So we'll discuss all the features in more detail as we get closer to the rollout of the new system, but I wanted to talk about some of the key features and highlight those here today. So first of all, in the new system, every study will be submitted into EIRB. So no longer will you go into Velos and then have the study pushed to EIRB. Everything will start in EIRB, and EIRB will be the source of truth. Only studies or clinical trials that are required to maintain their records in Velos will need to log into Velos. So if you're one of those exempt studies, exempt chart review study, and there's no reason for you to go into Velos, you'll only be working in EIRB and you won't need to worry about working within the Velos system. Another exciting feature is this single IRB portal. The single IRB portal is being developed outside of our firewall to allow our relying sites to submit their own local application to be a site on one of the studies that's approved by the UT Southwestern IRB. We hope that the single IRB portal, which allows those investigators or relying investigators to communicate and interface directly with UT Southwestern IRB, we hope that improves or cuts down on the amount of work that the lead site coordinators have to do right now, sort of acting as the middle people between the IRB and your relying sites. There's going to be more changes to the CRU approval process. So we did make some changes in 2023, but in the new system, the expectation is that only investigator-initiated protocols that don't receive some other type of review will require a CRU approval. So for example, if your study is NIH funded or industry sponsored, there's not going to be a requirement for CRU approval. Another example is if your study requires PRMC review at the Cancer Center, we're not going to go through an additional layer of CRU approval. So we hope that speeds up the submission of studies to the EIRB system. We'll have improved document management in the new system. Right now, document management is a very manual process for the IRB office, and it's all going to be automated in the new system. So our naming conventions that you see are going to go away, and they'll be replaced with categories of documents. And the EIRB system will actually help to manage or lock down to track changes, any documents that are submitted and finalized. We're going to leverage REDCap for any individuals that need to submit to EIRB but are non-EIRB users. Some examples of that are individuals who are submitting quality improvement projects or non-UT Southwestern personnel that need a determination by the IRB for non-research or non-human research. Also for emergency use. Anyone who doesn't have an EIRB account would need to have one in order to submit to the system. In the future, they'll be able to submit their applications through REDCap, and that will actually push into EIRB. We'll also have a live integration with eGrants and eAgreement, so we'll have current and up-to-date information between the systems, so we know what agreements you have in place, if it's DUAs and DTAs, and we'll also know the status of your grants within the eGrant system. The EIRB system will include all project types, so we will eliminate those additional reviews that are happening right now between investigators and the IRB office through email and Word documents. The Reliance request activity that Mayed was just discussing today will actually be housed within EIRB and will no longer be housed within the REDCap system. We are eliminating most Word documents. So as I know, this was one of the areas you said we could improve is those Word attachments to the EIRB system is quite frustrating. So as many as can be eliminated are being eliminated and have been incorporated into the EIRB system, including the dreaded Form B. So study personnel will be included entirely within the new EIRB system. Modifications to the study, you will have a modification smart form, but it'll be very short with just a few questions. And then what you'll do is when you open that modification, you'll see your entire study smart form, and you'll be able to make edits to the smart form within that modification smart form. Once you submit that to us, then we'll be able to see exactly what was changed, and it will eliminate the requirements for you to answer a lot of additional questions and give us a lot of additional information. We'll also be able to send notifications to ad hoc email addresses. This is important because when we have non-compliance or unanticipated problems, currently the IRB staff are sending out separate emails from their personal email to attach the letter to that, to be able to send it to outside email addresses or individuals that don't have access to the EIRB system. So in addition to being able to just type in an email and send the notification from the IRB system, we are also going to be able to have the approval letters attached to the email and the notification that comes out of the system. So when you receive a notification from EIRB that your study was approved, the approval letter will actually be attached in PDF to that email. And so you or the investigator will not have to log into the EIRB system to download the approval letters. And then one final exciting change is that for non-human research projects, those are the projects using de-identified or completely anonymous specimens or data, or doing research with decedents or deceased individuals, all those projects that you would normally submit a Y1 for. If you answer the questions correctly in the new EIRB system, you'll receive an immediate auto-generated letter of your non-human research determination. And so we hope that helps to speed up the turnaround time and get you up and running more quickly. So I feel like I said this last year, but I'm saying it again. We expect this now to roll out in this summer, actually. So we are currently working on our communication plan, and you'll hear more about the detailed system changes in EIRB, the new name of the EIRB system, as well as our upcoming training plan. All right, REDCap Part 11. So you've been asking for a 21 CFR Part 11 certification for REDCap for some time. So we've been working with RAS, formerly AIS, and the Office of Clinical Research last year, and we are close to certifying the use at UT Southwestern. I do want to remind you that this 21 CFR Part 11 certification of REDCap is required only for FDA regulated research. We will certify the system for data capture and storage of electronic records. This does not include electronic signatures. I want to make sure that's really clear. An electronic signature is when you click a button and a signature is just added. So like in DocuSign, that's an electronic signature. Alternatively, a handwritten signature is any time that you draw your signature, and it doesn't matter if you use a pen, a mouse, or a stylus, even on a tablet. That a handwritten signature doesn't require Part 11 compliance because the FDA says you actually drew your signature, and they don't care how you drew it or what medium you used. But an electronic signature, clicking a button and having a signature added, that is right now functionality that we are not including in this certification of REDCap. If you want to use REDCap for e-consent, you can use the certified REDCap, certified Part 11 REDCap for e-consent and have the handwritten signature block included in those consent documents. But this certification is really just for the data capture and data storage of electronic records, which is also required under Part 11. The compliant use of the REDCap system will require additional training by study teams, and that training will be available in REDCap, and that's actually what we're finalizing right now. So we've also been working with the IMED consent team to develop a process to utilize the IMED consent for research participants. So IMED consent is an Epic housed application, and if you're involved on the clinical side, then you've probably seen it. It allows for electronic consenting of patients. It is HIPAA compliant, and we're told that because it's housed within the Epic system, that it's also 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. The IMED consent will actually help you to capture electronic signatures on the consent in the appropriate places. And what's really exciting about this particular system is that you will no longer have to scan consent documents and send them over for upload to the medical record, because the consent is in Epic. The signed consent will immediately be stored within the participant's Epic medical record. The system also includes point of care, so you could have them sign at the study visit on an iPad, or mobile sign capabilities. So you could send them a link and they could actually sign from their phone. All right, and now moving on to another initiative, which is the Clinical Research Coordinator Education and Events. So I oversee the CTSA supported Clinical Research Coordinator Educational Curriculum. While we rolled out the foundations in 2023, we're still hard at work developing additional courses, activities, and events. So the approach to developing the education for coordinators is multifaceted. So first, it involves the three sort of levels of curriculum, which is the foundations, intermediate, and advanced, or skilled or intermediate and advanced courses. The researcher handbook that we have on our website, videos, and the comprehensive website. We're also really focusing on networking. We think that we need to build a community for clinical research coordinators at UT Southwestern, and so as part of that, we're planning to host an annual Research Professionals Day or Research Administrators Day, which is in September. More information to come about that. We expect to hand out awards at that Research Administrators Day. We plan to host monthly lectures and social events as well to help sort of build the coordinator community at UT Southwestern. We're also developing a mentorship program. And with that program, we'll identify and assign mentorship pairs. We expect them to have monthly meetings, very similar to the BRG mentorship program if you've taken part in that. We'll have some training for mentors and mentees and provide support to all participants in the program throughout that mentorship experience. And then finally, hands-on training. So this was some of the feedback that we received, and ironically, something that we were already working on. We just took a lot more effort to get it rolled out, so we couldn't roll it out last July. But we will be pairing coordinators with more senior coordinators and providing them with hands-on training exercises. And the goal there is for them to gain real-world experience using real-world examples. And to show you, here's a glimpse into the new CRC mentorship program that's being rolled out this spring. So it involves that mentor-mentee pairing or matching. Mentees and mentors will be asked to complete some basic questionnaires so that we can make sure to match up the appropriate pairs. The program itself will be about 4 months. It depends on your pace, and it involves completion of 6 modules. You'll receive a certificate at the end showing that you've completed all the modules. You're going to be provided an activity booklet for each module. And this here is an example of module 2 activity booklet. So you can see it's 6 pages. It includes sort of an agenda for your meetings, what kind of questions to ask, some activities to complete to make sure that you truly understand the topic of that module, and even some resources at the end for you to be able to refer back to. It's going to provide the individuals with hands-on learning, which we're told you really want, and that networking experience and opportunity. So I'm very excited. I know we're piloting this this spring and hope to roll it out campus-wide by late spring, early summer. So what's next for HRPP this year? Here's what we expect to look out for in 2024. Of course, we'll provide more information at Future Research Matters about these initiatives as we prepare for their launch. But the EIRB new system, we are looking to roll that out this year. It will not be 2025. It will definitely be 2024. The consent template generator I discussed should be rolled out this year. We're hoping to roll it out. We were hoping to roll it out with the old EIRB system, but I think it may be rolled out with the new system just for ease of programming. IMED consent, we're getting close to piloting that, so we should be able to roll that out around the time that we roll out the new EIRB system. The REDCap Part 11 certification, it's again, we have completed the training. We just need to finalize and get all sign off from all the offices involved, and we'll be able to roll that out soon. The Clinical Research Coordinator Education and Events, continue to see that grow as this year progresses. And finally, as a result of those changes that May had made in the IRB office and that quality improvement initiative that we're doing as part of the CTSA and Office of Clinical Research, one of Dr. Peterson's initiatives, we expect to see a continued decrease in study startup times and IRB approvals. And that's all I have for you. We have just 4 minutes left, but if you have ideas for Future Research Matters topics, please let us know. You can send an email to us to let us know or complete the evaluation. And with that, thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to Erica.
Yes, thank you so much for all of those updates and what we've accomplished over the past year. It's been a lot. So I'm going to just pause a few minutes. We have been answering the questions as they come in, so we don't have too many for you at the moment. But I'll just see if anyone has any last minute questions come up. Take a pause. Okay, I am getting some come in and we'll do our best to answer them. I have one for you, Scott. Will the consent observations be part of all not-for-cause quality reviews?
Thanks, Erica. No, it will not be for all of them.
Okay.
Just as we will request them if we have any concerns from what we find during your reviews, or if there's issues such as very high risks, vulnerable populations, and so on. So it probably will not be all, probably not even most.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So we answered that one. Will the IMED consents be available for anyone in EMR to access? Rhonda, I know you're responding. Mayed?
I can answer that.
You can answer that. Go ahead, Eric.
So
Yeah.
IMED is a platform that connects from our side, which is an IMED console, which you really don't need to see because it's our site. My team will be handling that. It connects directly to Epic. So this is specifically going to be for patients of UT Southwestern because of that tie-in to Epic. So yes, it will be anyone who has access. If you are aware, Epic is an all or none type of access. So anyone who has access to Epic is going to have IMED. It's going to have access to this. Definitely.
Okay. Okay. Well, we are actually out of time, but we will be able to answer your questions. If you would like to send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu, we're always available to help answer your questions. And so I'm just going to wrap this up. I want to thank our presenters today. We had Scott, we had Mayad, we had Rhonda. Thank you all for your time and your questions, and also providing your feedback to our survey, as it does provide us with information to help us for the future. Our next session is going to be in March. Can you believe that? That will be March 19th. So we'll see you guys then. Thank y'all. Have a good day.